Hi everyone! Today we're going to be talking about one of my absolute favorite things in makeup, and that is brightly colored eyeshadow palettes. Now I like to think that I'm known for wearing brightly colored eyeshadow. I tend to wear colors more often than I ever wear neutrals. And while I do have a lot to say in terms of brightly colored eyeshadow, one thing I have to point out is that there's not a whole lot of palettes out there that are mainly focused on bright colors that are not limited edition. More often than not, brands will put them out as like a holiday item or a spring item, but then they're gone and you can't get your hands on them. So I'm gonna be talking about a bunch of palettes here that are currently available now. There is one that is limited edition and there is one that is discontinued, but it's still available. So if you want those ones, you're gonna have to rush out and get them pretty quickly. The rest of the items though are thankfully permanent products, so you can go buy them at your leisure. So let's kick this off with the newest release, and this one is limited edition and it literally just came out. That is the Too Faced Life's a Festival collection. Now I know a lot of people aren't sold on this kind of like hokey packaging. A few people said it was kind of juvenile. I like it, I think it's fun. It doesn't necessarily fit on my bookcase where I store all my palettes, but it's still fun. And the most important part is that it comes with really fun eyeshadows. Now, when I first got this palette, I was a little bit skeptical because I feel like the range of colors in here, while vibrant, I thought it really focused too much on warm tones. And I was like, well, there's not enough of a rainbow in there. I was totally wrong. This is a beautiful set of colors and all of them work so well together. Now I did film a try-on tutorial of this collection, so I will link to that down below, but the look that I produced was so beautiful. It was a rainbow that wrapped around my eye and I was really pleased with it. Now the shadows in here do focus a little bit more on shimmers than they do on mattes. You really only have three mattes, a pink, a mid-tone brown that most people would use in their crease, and then this purple over here. That being said, I found that there was enough paleness and enough deepness in order to make the looks really come together. So if they were all sort of all on the pale side of things, I don't feel like it would work, but they're not. So this has been a really, really good one for me, and I've been using this one constantly. But again, remember, this one is limited edition, so if you want to get your hands on it, you got to do it like nowish, maybe over the next month and a half. I don't really know if this is going to sell out, but I would recommend that you pick this one up. The next one is a discontinued item, but it is still available at Nordstrom Rack, and that is Urban Decay's Electric Palette. And I have talked about this one so many times over the years. This is a beautiful neon palette. Well, neon, but it's got some silver in it. And I think this is one of my absolute favorite palettes in my entire collection. Now, it does need to be pointed out because some people are so sensitive about this topic, but some of these are labeled as pigments and not eyeshadows, which makes them not eye safe. Whatever. I've used every single one of these around my eyes and I've not had a problem or a reaction, but I'm not especially sensitive. That disclaimer out of the way, these are incredible. I love how vibrant they are. And it's a palette that I always go back to when I need to get inspired. Sometimes I'll fall into a little bit of a rut with color. I'm just like, oh, what do I do? If I'm feeling like that, I'll usually go back to this palette, pull it out, and then all of a sudden I just feel myself completely inspired again. It's fun to really play around with this palette and this palette only. I would challenge people to try to create a look just using this and don't pull in any other neutrals, and I think you're gonna have a lot of fun. So again, this one is available at Nordstrom Rack right now. I think it's on sale for like 20 bucks. So worth getting. I know it's going to eventually disappear though, so much like the Too Faced palette, go out and get it while you can. All right, now that those two are kind of out of the way because they are limited edition / discontinued, let's talk about stuff that's a little bit more permanent and easy to get. The one I'm going to talk about first is the Viseart Editorial Brights palette, and I know that this is a very expensive palette, but I have gone back to this time and time again when I've just needed a particular color. Now, this whole palette is matte, which is great because in general, I tend to prefer matte shades over shimmers, so I will always gravitate towards a palette that has more mattes than shimmers, and this just really makes it easy if you need a particular color. The whole rainbow spectrum is in here and you can mix the colors together and they are beautiful and effortless. I do tend to use this palette a little bit more differently than other palettes. In general, I'd rather grab one palette and use it as is, but for whatever reason, I tend to use this palette as kind of like a one-off. So if I need an orange lid shade, I'll go grab it from this one. If I need a yellow or a blue for the outer corner or a purple for the outer corner, I'll tend to gravitate towards this palette and that's what I'll use it for. I know the price tag is up there, but this has been such a like fail-safe staple product in my collection that I would absolutely recommend this to anybody. So that Editorial Brights palette is like 100 Canadian, which is a lot of money to fork over. So let's talk about something that's a little bit more reasonable. This Pinky Rose Bright Lights palette is fantastic. I just posted a review and 5 looks on it last week, and I was so impressed with the quality of this thing. And it's only $25, which is amazing. 25 American. And I do need to point out that some palettes at the drugstore here in Canada are now verging in the $20 to $30 Canadian range, which I think is absolute insanity. Like, that is so much money. So if you're interested in bright colors, look for something online, because even the drugstore doesn't have much to offer in terms of bright colors. Anyway, back to this palette. The colors in here are vibrant, neon, beautiful, and so much fun to wear. You will find that a lot of these shades are quite neon in tone, which does mean that they require a little bit more TLC when you apply them. Instead of trying to buff it through your lid, try patting it on. You'll get a better look overall. But not only are the neons fun, you've also got 3 glitters in here, which I thought were gonna be an absolute disaster, and they're not. They actually have a little bit of some sort of adhesive in the base so that you can actually pat it onto your eye, and they'll stay put without a glitter glue, which is really, really impressive. I actually don't think you can beat this price point for these colors. I think this is probably the most reasonably priced palette that I have that's got such vivid colors in it. So check them out online or at an IMATS. I don't think they're available in stores yet. And the next 2 palettes I have to talk about are by Sleek, and I have had these for absolute ages, and I go back to them all the time. They are called the Ultra Mattes version 1 and version 2. Version 1 is the brighter toned one. So these aren't quite neon, although they seem to look it. I don't get any kind of a chalky texture with these ones, so they do go on the lid really, really well. Again, with colors in general, I tend to pat as opposed to buff, just because I feel like it applies the color a lot better. I go back to this one all the time. It's similar to the Editorial Brights palette by Visart in the sense that these are all really good lid shades, or they'll make a great outer corner color if that's just what I'm going for. I reach for this one all the time, and usually it's in connection with their darker palette. Now, this is not necessarily brights, but it is colorful. And I think it's really important for people to realize that you can't just buy a bright palette that's colorful and use that by itself. More often than not, you need a colorful palette that is dark so that you can incorporate some dimension into your look. So oftentimes I will take the Brights palette, grab any shade from here, put that on my lid, and then I'll grab a corresponding darker shade and put that on the outer corner from this palette. So there's a purple, a navy, a teal, and a dark green that I go back to all the time to put something in the outer corner to contrast with whatever's on my lid. That's really important for a look if you're looking to add some depth. And as somebody with hooded lids, I really need to add like dimension across my lid, because otherwise everything just gets sucked up by the fact that like this hood part sits down on my lid all the time. So I'm always reaching for something that's a little bit more dimensional with my eyeshadows. So I think it is really important to mention that you don't always just need a bright eyeshadow palette. You also need a colorful eyeshadow palette, but one that has a lot of depth and dimension and deepness to it. Sleek is available at Ulta in the US now, and you can buy it online directly from the UK if you're in Canada and want to purchase it online, and the shipping is really inexpensive. It's probably one of the cheapest ones I've ever seen. I haven't ordered from them directly, but I remember putting stuff into my cart, and I feel like 60 bucks in product was something like under $10 in shipping. It was really, really good. And in sticking with the notion of colorful eyeshadow that is darker, I have to recommend the Zoeva Matte Spectrum palette. This one is, as you would expect, all matte shadows, but again, it's in a variety of colors. So you pretty much have a rainbow look here. They're all just a little bit deeper in tone. So I'll gravitate towards these again when I need something that's gonna go on my outer corner to contrast with what's on the lid. These are smooth, blendable, and very, very easy to apply. And I actually feel like these ones can be buffed as opposed to just patted on, which is really, really good because I don't find I get that too often in a brightly colored eyeshadow. However, that may be down to the fact that these are a little bit deeper, and I feel like darker eyeshadows deal a lot better with buffing than bright light colors. Now, I think Zoeva is pretty much going to be an online only brand for most people. I did pick this one up at Sephora Australia in stores, but we don't have Zoeva available to us in North America at Sephora, so you'd have to pick this one up online unless you know of a store that carries it, but I don't personally. I just really like how easy this one is because it has the full rainbow spectrum in there. So that's it for my brightly colored eyeshadow palette review. Some of them are deeper in tone, but again, I think it's important to mention that you can't just go get brights without needing some sort of color that's gonna deepen it up. I hope you found this video helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions down below. I would be more than happy to answer any questions involving brightly colored eyeshadow because it's really my favorite thing in makeup. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!